Thank you so much, Mike and Kyle, for joining me to talk about Brink today. This is going to be our first community call, hopefully the first of many. So the structure of this is we have a pretty simple PDF here that we're going to go through, just walking everyone through Brink if you're not familiar. Throughout all of that, if anyone in the audience has questions, please put them in the chat at any point. And towards the end of the video, I will click on those questions and we can go over them and answer them together. So without further ado, let's get started. Just to introduce the team at a high level, Mike, are you okay starting first, just introducing yourself?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Justin. My name is Mike Calvanese. I'm co-founder and CEO of Brink. I've been working in the Ethereum space for about 4 years now. I've been software engineer, technical background for over 10 years. I worked at a company called Level K back in like 2017, 2018. We did a lot of security auditing projects and did some grant work with some other companies in Ethereum, a lot of open source work, and founded Brink with Andrew about a little over 6 months ago now. And yeah, that brings us to where we are today. I guess I'll kick it over to Kyle to give an intro.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Mike. So my name's Kyle Bryant. I have been a software developer since 2015. So I've worked for Amazon, Hitachi. Then my interests really led to decentralized application development. And Ethereum with smart contract development around 2018. And so I've been in and out of the space since then, going to a bunch of hackathons. Mike let me know about his project that he was working on back in March of this year, and I thought it was really cool and exciting, so I joined on then. Just super excited to be part of this call, and I'll kick it back to Justin.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with me just coming from the YouTube channel and the community Discord, but I've actually only been in the crypto space for about a year and a half. I actually met Andrew, Mike's co-founder, while I was working at Snapchat. He told me a bit about what he was working on at that point, and I never bought Bitcoin, Ethereum, ETH, or anything at that point. So I like to say I had almost the luckiest timing. Right when the COVID crash was happening was when I started exploring cryptocurrency. So very lucky timing there, but obviously very happy what I'm doing at Brink and have really enjoyed getting to know everyone that's watching this and everyone that's in our community. So moving on to just explaining what we're doing at a high level, I think a lot of people are probably going to be familiar with that, but just to recap, what we're trying to do here is really build critical infrastructure that's currently missing in decentralized finance. So we're, of course, taking all of those principles of being permissionless, fully decentralized, and community driven, but we're trying to bring some of these aspects from traditional finance that help users manage different order types and automation on the blockchain. So going over what's missing, I think a lot of people have similar pain points here, and that's probably why a lot of folks are in our community. The first issue is really most transactions that happen or most trades that happen are just spot trades. So there's really very few ways to conduct limit orders and stop loss orders. For limit orders, that is somewhat changing, but when we start talking about stop loss orders and more complex conditionals, there really are no solutions out there. The second is just automated trade management. Users have to manually monitor their investments and they have to transact at any moment. And if you don't have a bot managing your position or you don't have the technical capability to actually develop something, you're kind of stuck monitoring the market. And as we know with crypto, it's 24/7. So that can be almost a full-time job, which is obviously not ideal. And lastly, this is one interesting problem we haven't seen any solutions for is that right now users are responsible for their own transaction. So if you submit a transaction, you have to know how to set the gas price. You have to monitor that transaction, make sure it succeeds. Right now, that could take maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, who knows? But the transaction could fail and you're still on the hook for the cost of gas there and you have to resubmit something. And by that point, the market conditions could have already changed. So these are three things that we're really going after and want to solve. So you can see here, this is basically a great summary of what we're building. First of all is conditional orders. So that includes limit orders, stop loss orders, and we can build really any type of complex automation that the end users want. So an example of that would be you can see here on the left, we can balance liquidity automatically. We can put a stop loss on LP positions. We can do a profit taking order for LP positions, and we can do this for a traditional Uniswap v2 LP token, or we could do this for even a Uniswap v3 NFT token. And lastly, we do want to help manage the transaction for the end user. So the platform is fully non-custodial, but that said, the user owns a proxy account that their personal Ethereum address has full custody over and full ownership over. But through that proxy account, the user is able to submit orders that a network of executors monitor. And as long as the conditions are met, the executor can execute that transaction for the user. And that just kind of takes away all of the technical burden from the user and makes things a bit simpler. One of the things we talk about a lot here is that it's actually pretty intensive to expect the average end user to interact with, say, Uniswap directly on the blockchain. We think in 5 years or so, or 10 years, that all of that will be done kind of in the back end in an automated way from the user. So to talk more about the technical side of the infrastructure here, Mike, do you want to take over?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the overview, Justin. So yeah, just to go into like kind of very high level architecture of Brink here. Brink, like a lot of other protocols on Ethereum, is built on many layers. We kind of at the lowest level here is L1 or L2. So that could be like basically any EVM compatible chain. Sits on top of that. There is kind of like a automated market maker liquidity layer, and that's obviously there's many many of those on chain right now. Various versions of Uniswap, SushiSwap, 1inch, and a number of others. So then on top of that, what we're building is basically like a liquidity agnostic execution layer. So it's not tied to any specific AMM. It is basically like a pool of signed orders that users can put out there, and then executors come in and match those with on-chain liquidity. So that could be an ERC20 trade or ETH trade on an existing liquidity source. It could be an NFT transfer. It really could be anything. And we've built the Brink protocol in such a way that it's not tied to any specific protocol on that automated market maker layer or even a specific asset. Private market makers could also be supported. An executor itself could run its own private market maker and fill automated trades. So yeah, that describes Brink at a high level. There's a lot more detail there that we could get into if folks are interested. And I think I'll kick this over to Kyle. Kyle did a lot of work on building the first Brink executor. This is a question we get a lot from prospective users, is like, how do I build an executor for Brink? It is a permissionless role, but Kyle can talk more about that as he's built the first one.
All right, thanks, Mike. Yeah, so the real power behind the Brink application is the executor network. So our application will have a UI, obviously, that where you can make your limit orders and other types of conditional orders going forward. But the real power is behind this executor network, where the executors are basically constantly playing a game of who can be most profitable. They can basically develop their own systems of using different protocols to get the best profit margins for the users, which in turns will give them the best profit margins. And then on the other side, the Brink can actually be integrated into other decentralized applications, and can also be extended. So a developer could come along and decide there's a conditional order type that's missing from the Brink ecosystem, and write their own smart contract that could eventually get integrated into our UI, or they could just create their own UI for it, and they would already have our executor network at the ready. So yeah,
Awesome.
it's really cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. So I'm just going to stop the screen share here and try to bring all three of us in. So Con, Diego, I see you both have great questions. I will get to those right after this final question I have. I did also want to remind anyone in the audience to submit questions. We can see them. We'll get to them. But I just want to start things off. Mike and Kyle, can you share a bit about your updates on the development side of things? Any progress there that you can report, since we did do a community call on my personal YouTube channel. This is kind of our first big update on the Brink YouTube channel, but what updates are there in the last 3 weeks that you can share?
Sure. Yeah, I can share the updates. I think the last time we did the community call, we had not released any of the code yet. So we actually have a ton of open source code now that we've released. We've released all the smart contract code for Brink, some utility project in there, test helpers, some of the services around Brink. We're in the process of releasing our SDK, which will be released very soon. But yeah, maybe could we post a link here, Justin, for the GitHub? It's Brink Trade on GitHub.
Yeah, sure. I'll get that up while you're going through the updates.
Thanks. Yeah. So lots of code on the GitHub. Kyle, do you want to give an update on some of the stuff you're working on too?
Yeah, so right now we're working on, we actually made a pretty big smart contract rewrite. So we've been basically updating our whole project to basically it'll allow for new features much easier. So we've been working on getting the web app up and running again. And look forward to testnet soon. Hashtag testnet soon. And yeah, so we're just super excited. We've been working really hard to try to get that out for you guys.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so the big kind of core change that we added was the ability to kind of do like replayable transactions based on a user-signed order. So that's like executors can execute multiple actions based on like permission from a user, and that sounds pretty complicated, but what that actually allows is like a really important feature, which is dollar cost averaging, like building a dollar cost averaging application on our infrastructure. We did kind of like a voting poll on most important features for users, and that one came out as number one. So the changes that Kyle and I are implementing now are going to allow us to build that and many other features that kind of have a similar like replayable aspect. And then also that enables like the rest of the developer community to also build those types of features. So we had to do some update basically all the services around the smart contract. So we're finishing that up and getting this out on testnet very soon. We are about to start the auditing process for our smart contract code, and as soon as we are finished with that, we'll be deploying to mainnet. So yeah, we anticipate that's going to happen pretty quickly. Kyle's working on the web app right now. I'm working on SDK and API, and yeah, we're going to get that released very soon.
Awesome. So I have a bunch of questions I want to ask, but I do want to jump to one from the audience that's probably the most common, or one of the most common questions we get. What's the difference here with Gelato? I pass it over to Mike, but I do just want to start off by saying, obviously, we love what they're doing as well. It's great to have innovation in this space, but they are solving the problem a bit differently than us. There are a few key changes. So we don't know exactly how they're building, but one thing about their limit order product that we've tested is that for their limit orders, you have to pay a gas fee to submit your limit order, and then you also pay an inherent fee that the executor takes when they transact it. So there's kind of a double fee there. With our platform, it's designed with this proxy account mechanism where there would only be one fee for the user, and that's actually when the executor executes the transaction. They take a small arbitrage fee from it, but you don't have to pay to submit the order. So that's one key difference that we stumbled upon that I wanted to share. But Mike, you probably have some more things you can share as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely a good difference to highlight. I'd expand that to say, like, all orders in Brink are what we're calling gas deferred. So all actions that you sign as a user in Brink are actually free. There's no gas cost. It's just a signed message. And then you will ultimately pay the gas cost, but you only pay the gas cost if the conditions are met for your order, and then the order is actually mined on chain. So if that doesn't happen and your order expires, you would actually never pay any cost for it. And that's very different than the way that Gelato is designed, where you actually pay for the action on chain. So definitely, like, very similar. Like, we're going after a similar problem here, and it's good to see other teams working on this problem, because we see it as something that's huge for the DeFi space.
I do want to bring up one more difference, is that for Gelato, you actually have to deposit the swap amount. And for our application, you just have to sign a message. So there's nothing holding you to keeping funds in Brink. You could always transfer out your funds at any time. Meanwhile, you have to actually pay a transaction cost to transfer out your funds out of that limit swap within Gelato, if that's even possible. I don't know enough about their interface to say whether that's possible or not. But yeah, so that I think that's a huge thing, because you could, create like 100 limit swap orders on our website, and you may not even have the funds to have all those limit swap orders up, but it'll only execute the ones that are actually possible based on the funds in your account, and you can transfer them out at any time. So yeah, there's just a lot more freedom from my point of view.
And I see a question here that is related to what we're talking about. Isn't the kind of like the model we're talking about similar to Matcha? It definitely is, with some important differences. So Matcha also free to sign the order that you're creating, the limit order. But what you're actually approving there is, or what you're actually authorizing is like a direct ERC20 transfer. So you still have to pay the gas to approve the ERC20 in Matcha. Also, the orders in Matcha are like the architecture, it's actually 0x underneath Matcha. So the 0x architecture only supports ERC20 swaps. What we've built with Brink supports really any transaction abstracted in a similar way. So you can sign any order type transaction. So that could be like a staking transaction, transaction involving NFTs, transaction involving ETH directly. Like, all these things you can't do with the 0x architecture. That's really only designed for ERC20s. So with all the development in DeFi in the past year, we have so many different asset types and a lot of new interaction types that currently like can't be automated. So that was really like the motivation for building this product. We're building this protocol. We have users doing all kinds of new things on DeFi, and we're able to automate these things.
Awesome. I see a great question here from Khan. He asks, will you support Polygon/Cardano blockchains, or is this only ERC20? A couple things there, and then I'll pass it off to Mike. So just to clarify, this isn't ERC20. This is any asset on Ethereum. So this could work with ERC20s, NFTs, Ethereum, ETH itself, which is not an ERC20. Regarding different blockchains like Polygon or Cardano, we will eventually follow where the liquidity goes. Right now, it's our thought that that's probably going to go to the true L2s like Optimism and Arbitrum, and that's probably where we target for deploying our L2 or scaling solution. But if it turns out that Polygon's a clear winner, we're happy to go there as well. As far as Cardano, I think it's probably a little early to talk about that, but yeah, I think those are probably our initial thoughts. Anything else you want to add, Mike?
Yeah, just want to say it's very easy for us to deploy on any EVM compatible L2. Um, Something like Cardano might be more difficult. I'm sure you could apply this a similar concept once they have whatever they're building for smart contracts. I'm sure you could apply a similar concept as Brink, but it wouldn't be like our what we've built so far probably wouldn't just like deploy on Cardano. But we can obviously deploy on the EVM compatible chains, Optimism, Arbitrum, and yeah, whatever else comes out in the future.
Awesome. Really interesting question from Tofu. Are you accounting for future ERCs that do not even exist yet? So could this handle a possible new asset type on Ethereum that's not developed yet?
Absolutely. Yeah, we built basically like a generic transaction automation protocol. So it doesn't even have to be like an asset per se. Like it could really automate any action on Ethereum. We would just have to build what we call a verifier for that. So that's like building a new order type. We build a smart contract verifier, which is like a peripheral contract. It's not part of the core. We deploy that separately, and anybody can do this. It's not a permissioned thing where like the Brink core team ourselves have to do this. But yeah, you can deploy that peripheral contract, and that acts as like basically the security layer for that order type, and it allows you as a user to say, okay, I approve this thing to happen in the future if these conditions on chain are met, and then executors can come in and basically mine that order for you. And that's like at the lowest level of our protocol. That can be done for absolutely any action. So future ERCs, yes, I don't know what those will be, but we can support those. And really, yeah, any transaction type at all.
Awesome. Again, continue to submit questions. We're happy to answer them. But I did want to bring something up. How are we thinking about going about prioritizing different order types? Obviously, there's almost an unlimited list of automated types of transactions and conditional orders. How are we going to prioritize what to deliver to the user? And can you talk a bit about how that ties into this non-transferable governance token that we've issued to community members now to help get their participation?
Sure. Yeah, that's a fun topic because we recently did this kind of like airdrop of a non-transferable token, and we really did that so we could get the community engaged and hear from the community on what features they want and what what direction they're looking for us to take. Because like Justin mentioned, we have so many different feature requests, and us as the core team can only build a certain number of those. We're going to launch with those, but then we're really like looking to the community to build additional ones in the future. But right now we want to prioritize and see like what are the most important things. So this non-transferable token, we set it up with a snapshot page, got a ton of engagement there. I'm sure a lot of the folks on this call voted on the proposal that Justin created for like kind of the initial feature request. And yeah, what was interesting out of that was that the dollar cost averaging was the most popular option. I think stop loss was second. And then the LP related features were third. Now we have like probably internally a list of like many different types of LP automation. So that's like potentially a lot of different features, and we probably won't build all of those, but we'll build a few as examples. We're definitely going to build dollar cost averaging because we see that that's like super important for the community and what users are asking for. We just did this kind of whole core rewrite pre-audit so that we are able to build features like that. So we have the flexibility to do that. And stop loss is very important as well. So really, we're focusing on those two things, like dollar cost averaging and stop loss first. They're relatively like easy to build on the smart contract side, and we'll be releasing some documentation around how to do that and guides around like how to build new order types, how to build a verifier. Our limit order verifiers are like 4 lines of code per verifier. It's really not very complicated. The tools around that can get a little complicated, but the order types themselves are very light. So we're envisioning like hundreds of these order types being part of kind of the peripheral protocol, and mostly community contributed. So we definitely want developers in the community working with us on those. But yeah, to summarize, we're building dollar cost averaging and stop loss first.
Sure. Can you touch on a bit? I know obviously we were talking about there's a potentially infinite number of custom automated order types. Can you talk a bit about how we're trying to work with the community or other platforms just to see if these other platforms would be able to like build their own automated order type and just bring that directly into their UI and their system without even, potentially working with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're building kind of smart contract core, and we're bootstrapping with an API that can be used to like basically store orders and make your orders public. So just like we've built our web application against those two things, like anyone can build a web app on those, or you could take an existing web app and integrate it with those. So there's nothing like it's very important to us to launch this without any permissioned or centralized aspect. So that means, well, of course, all the code is open source, or all the smart contract code is open source. And the way that we build our web application is no different than how anyone could build their web application. So the challenge we have now is just like making it easy for people to do this. So we have a lot of code, not a lot of docs. It's a big request that we get. We're working on that. It's hard to have to go through and reverse engineer all this code to build something on top of Brink. So we need to get that out to the community. That's kind of like on us as the core team and the creator of this protocol.
Yeah. Just on that note, for any developers watching live or watching in the future potentially, we're pretty active in the Discord. You can pretty much reach us anytime. If you want to chat with us about potentially becoming an executor or building your own order type, we're happy to chat with you. But again, as Mike said, if you don't want to talk to us, you don't have to. You can just use our service without even consulting us. And we hope to have docs there as soon as possible. So I see another great question from Tofu here. And they ask, can you touch on how Chainlink oracles could/might or won't integrate with Brink?
I'm thinking about this.
Okay.
I think so as far as what we're using for, or what Brink order types use for quote unquote oracles, like everything in Brink is based on on-chain conditions. So you could definitely have like some on-chain state that is set by a Chainlink oracle. We're not going to have any direct integration with Chainlink oracles, but you could build an order type that like relies on data from a Chainlink oracle, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that hopefully that answers the question.
Cool. I see a question from Cryptononsk, obviously very common, something we get a lot in this space is, did Brink raise any funds from VCs? So before I turn this over to Mike, I do want to mention we're obviously doing everything we can to look out for the community and make sure the community is incentivized to contribute. And that's like honestly our biggest priority is making sure that we build a strong community and ecosystem. But yeah, let Mike touch on this a bit.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we did. You can go on our website and see who the investors are.
Yeah.
I'll
share a link to our website now.
But yeah, we're a VC funded company. I want to answer Chris Swenner's question here. When reach? Oh, sorry, what's that?
We also have some DAOs.
We do, yeah.
We do have, yeah.
We have, yes, that's one of the coolest things going on in DeFi and crypto right now is the just DAOs in general. This has really like progressed a lot in the past year. So now we have DAO-based VC funds, which I think is an incredible concept. I'm very, very excited about this in the future. I feel like this is kind of where the crypto space is going to move toward. I really like these like kind of hybrid DAO company models. I think state of Wyoming like allows you to set up an entity that is governed by a DAO, which is just super cool. Yeah, you can throw Chris's question back. I don't want to leave Chris in the dust here. Chris, you got to talk to me about building on Reach. I haven't seen you in a while. Chris is also in Boston with me. He's one of the founders of Reach. So they're building some really cool stuff there. And we could potentially use something like Reach to kind of port the code over to a different platform. Like they're building that for basically like any application, I believe. And yeah, Chris couldn't explain it a lot better than I am, but you guys should all check out Reach.
Awesome. Let's see here. We have a very interesting question. Can you describe some different use cases for NFT holders / trades? I think this is probably not talking about Uniswap v3 liquidity positions, but probably like NFT positions as we think of them as like perhaps like art.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Because we talk a lot about NFTs like the V3 NFTs. That's sort of a different use case than like a digital art asset. So you could like, if you have kind of a marketplace or like bidding system for NFTs, you could sign effectively like a stop loss or limit order against your NFT, which is really interesting. So like instead of like if you have good price discovery for NFTs, and there's companies working on price discovery for NFTs, like Upshot is another one, and I think a few others. But if you can see the price on chain of an NFT, just like any other asset, then you could create a Brink take profit order or stop loss order on the value of that NFT. And that's really powerful. That's like, it kind of shows the power of what we're building because it does translate to any asset type. And NFT interface is very different than ERC20, but we can support both and potentially a lot more. But yeah, that's just a very simple use case. I'm sure there's like much more complex automated use cases. Oh yeah, Kyle, go ahead.
I bet a cool thing you could do that's just would be a simple one would be, sorry about the truck in the background, would be like if someone made like a bid on your NFT on OpenSea, it could automate like the selling of it based on the price, something like that.
Awesome. I only have a couple questions that I prepared left, so if there's anyone in the chat that wants to get some last questions in before we wind down the stream, definitely submit those now. But I did want to ask Mike and Kyle, can you talk about the decision to open up order execution to anyone? I know we talked a little bit about if we wanted to create a whitelist at the start for launching, but can you talk a bit about why we're just going to make that fully open from day one and how the incentives are aligned so that executors always deliver the end user the best price that they can?
Yeah, absolutely. We have like a fully permissionless network where anyone can effectively like mine orders that are put out to the network. And that's more or less like building a bot. Like if you're doing this, that'd be a pretty technical task. You'd be building some automated software that looks at the public orders that are coming in, and then crosses those with on-chain liquidity, watches for the right conditions, and when the conditions are right, executes them for a reward. The reward can be different depending on the order type. So for limit orders, it's arbitrage based. It could be like a fixed price reward that is signed as part of the order. But yeah, the important thing here is like, we don't want to be the only point of like a point of centralization for this process. So that in order to fit into the DeFi ecosystem and really be efficient, we have to create a network for this where anyone can come in and play that role. So we've had a lot of folks reach out to us asking like how can I get involved in this? How can I build an executor? With a network like this, the more executors that are built, the pricing actually becomes more efficient. So there are network effects here, and we want the protocol to take advantage of those. So if we did this just ourselves as a centralized point, which like there are other services that have done that in the past, I think there's a few projects that are taking that approach to this problem. They can't ever achieve the same efficiency and scale that kind of a network of competing executors can. So that's really like the motivation for why we want to keep this open. We're very passionate about decentralization. Obviously, we want to build this as a fully decentralized protocol, and yeah, we believe that ultimately that solution will succeed. So that's the route that we're taking.
Awesome. And just to expand, one interesting anecdote about Mike just dropped in there that we can have different incentive mechanics for executors based on each order type. So obviously arbitrage options or arbitrage with limit orders. But one interesting thing we've heard from institutions and just large traders is that they want to protect their large position they have with a stop loss, and they'd be willing to spend maybe $50, $100, $200 to protect this $100,000 or $1 million or whatever position size. And so you could potentially imagine an order where you're saying to a network of executors, I'll pay you an $100 reward as long as you execute my stop loss order as quick as possible. And so all of the different executors on the network all compete for that reward. Great question from Tofu here, calling back the stream we had in May. Thank you for tuning in then. He said, or they say that we explained auto exiting range orders. Would that also work for multi-asset pools? I think you're probably talking about something like Balancer here.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think since May, and this I didn't mention this in the update, we've also built kind of a range order specific smart contract. We worked with the Uniswap team a little bit on that. That's also on the Brink Trade GitHub repo. It's called range orders. So you can check that out.
I'll flash that again here.
That's basically for like auto exiting range orders on Uniswap v3. We will be integrating that into the UI at some point, but we're going to deploy that probably separately from the Brink core code because it is like a separate thing. But yeah, as far as like multi-asset pools, like if they're referring to Balancer, like we could definitely build either like liquidity sourcing for limit swaps against Balancer. So you could actually do that. You could go and build your own Balancer-based executor. Probably make some profit from that if you're getting better prices on the Balancer pools in some cases for certain pairs. For range orders specifically, I'm not sure that Balancer supports range orders as they are in V3. I think range orders is just a V3 specific concept.
Yeah, I guess probably, but the overall question is we can integrate Balancer liquidity there and do a multi-asset pool or more than two assets. Yeah,
that's definitely true. Yes.
Awesome. So I don't see more questions. The last thing I wanted to conclude with is, can you just share a bit about the long-term goals in 5 years or 10 years if everything goes according to plan? If DeFi becomes a bit more mainstream, where do you think Brink's role what do you think Brink's role will be in 5 years or more?
Yeah, I see it as like the kind of critical layer of automation that sits on top of L1s and L2s. Potentially, the majority of transaction volume could actually be flowing through an automation layer. I think that's where things will go. It makes more sense from the end user perspective to kind of like push the more complex automated aspects down to like a more technical layer. So I see like Brink's automation layer as a place where if you're building a new application, like you're building a new interface, you would plug into that layer directly to kind of facilitate that automation for users. And yeah, I mean, what we see in like traditional finance markets is like there's so much volume is can be attributed to conditional orders, whereas in DeFi it's like pretty much all spot trades or like instantaneous transactions based on like whatever the conditions are at that moment. Um, so I could definitely see that whole thing kind of shifting to like a fully automated layer in the future, potentially like uh, a very large majority of transaction volume going through something like this. So we're really excited to be building this and have a pretty positive outlook on it. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any more questions, so I want to thank everyone for joining. I'm highlighting our Discord link here. I know it's not clickable on the screen, but if you're in the live chat right now, you can continue the conversation with us in the Discord. We're going to be hanging out there if there are more questions we didn't get into. If you're not watching this live, I will also add that I'm going to add the links, our relevant links to Twitter and Discord below in the description. But other than that, I want to thank everyone so much for being a part of our community so early on in the process. We are really appreciative of all of you, and can't thank you enough. So with that, thank you, Mike and Kyle, for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we will definitely see you all in the next community call. Bye, everybody.